This recording covers Chapter 13 in your textbook, Written Language, Written Expression, Spelling, and Handwriting. So I want you to keep in mind that written expression is different than handwriting. I feel a lot of you probably already know this, but written expression is, how are our students communicating in writing? How are we getting our point across? That's kind of that written expression, right? Where handwriting is the, kind of the physical act of writing, whether you're printing, whether you're using cursive, however your handwriting, whatever your handwriting looks like, that's handwriting. And again, written expression is how we are communicating in writing. How are we telling one another what we want, what we don't want, and how are we getting our point across? So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through this chapter. This is a pretty quick PowerPoint chapter, so I am going to switch to the e-textbook at the end of the chapter. So 2 truths and a lie, again, same as all the other chapters. You don't have to write down your answer or anything. Just see what you think if you can come up with it. Okay, we talked, I believe it was last chapter, or was it chapter 11? One of the most recent chapters, either 11 or 12, about that, the link of that language core. And we see that again here. Oral language ties in and influences reading, our reading abilities, right? Our vocabulary, all of those things. And then our reading ties in or influences whatever you want to say that those arrows stand for, our writing and our written expression, right? I think they more mean written expression here than the actual handwriting. And then our writing, our written expression, influences our oral language. So the early literacy and writing, the philosophy of early literacy is really get young children to write early, right? It doesn't necessarily matter how they're spelling. It doesn't matter if they're using proper punctuation, capital letters, stuff like that. Get them writing early. So those of you out there who are our early childhood people, get your students writing, starting of course with letters, then they're writing their names, then you're getting them to write sentences. Again, it's okay if they're not spelling everything correctly. You want them to explore that alphabetic nature of writing, that sounds correspond to letters, and letters make words, and words make sentences. They need to see that and to practice that when they are young. It also helps children understand those basic concepts about print, right? We read from left to right. We, R-I-G-H-T. We write W-R-I-T-E from left to right. We have sentences that are ended with punctuation. We have sentences that begin with capital letters. A sentence tends to kind of talk about one subject or one thing, right? So all those things are really important when we are looking at early literacy. So the writing process, and of course you don't have to do this, you don't have to give an example. You can of course think about one, you can write one down, you can share one if you have a friend taking this class. Absolutely feel free, but you don't have to submit, of course. So stage 1 is pre-writing, drafting, revising, and sharing with an audience. These all 4 stages, they're all really important, even starting in those early grades. Pre-writing might look a little different, of course, in kindergarten or early childhood programs than in high school or college or writing a dissertation. I'll tell you all about my lack of a writing process in a few minutes. We want them to draft and think of ideas and use organizers, which I'll show you in a few minutes, to get their thoughts together and think about the progression of whatever it is that they're writing. Our younger students, of course, we're not going to have them write, 5 paragraphs or something like that, but maybe just getting them to write a sentence or 2 sentences and thinking about that plan and then revising it and then sharing with an audience. So I think your textbook mentions, different ways to share with an audience. They can have a written document that, is published, quote unquote, and bound and shared with a class, placed in a classroom library. If you have access to a either a book, either or, I guess, or either and, a bookbinding machine and or a laminator, take those pages that your students write, laminate them, and then go to the bookbinding thing and put the little spiral bound whoop whoop thing on there. And you can keep those books forever. You can send them home at the end of the year with your younger students. Look how far we've come, whatever. I used to, when I taught special ed in Charleston, I laminated everything everything, people. And then anything that I could, we had a bookbinding machine at the school where I worked. I would bind everything. And I actually, once I started at Francis Marion, I had like I don't know, I think back then it was like the Common Core standards for ELA and math. And of course I printed them out and I was like, oh, I want to see if we have a bookbinding machine anywhere. And the library had one, and they told me that I was the first person who had ever used it. So bind, laminate everything. They're easy to share that way. You know, they don't get dirty. You can kind of wipe off whatever, especially our little kiddos spell on their books or on their document. You can also, you know, share their work through a presentation, a bulletin board display, a newsletter, a puppet show. They can read to stuffed animals, whatever, right? They could partner up, you know, the younger students could partner with the older students and they could share their writing, you know, both ways. The older students can share with the younger students can share with the older students. So one strategy, there are a number of strategies, for teaching writing. There's some learning strategies, specific learning strategies. This one is called Self-Regulated Strategy Development, or SRSD. Lots of acronyms. I know if you're just starting out in the special ed program, you will see that there are a ton of acronyms. So this one, you know, you want to think about 6 stages for teaching writing. That background knowledge, right? Activating that background knowledge, what they already know. Discuss a strategy they might use. Model the writing strategy. You know, you can model it, the students can model it. Memorize the strategy, support the strategy by writing a story using the strategy, and independent performance using the strategy. So your textbook goes into a little more detail about this strategy, and it's on page 391 in the hard copy textbook. And just a little fun fact, Linda Mason, she was one of my professors when I was at Penn State in the grad program, and now she is actually at George Mason University in Virginia, which is where I got my undergrad. So fun fact, that's all I got. Okay, so some strategies for improving writing, all of these things, written conversations, right? Have them write down conversations that they had with their friend, their mom, their dog, their stuffed animal, whoever. Personal journals, pattern writing. And your textbook talks about this either, or also, you know, where they could take a predictable text. You know, brown bear, what do you see, right? Early childhood, you all know that one. Chicka, chicka, boom, boom, something like that. And they could follow that pattern, but write their own personalized response kind of thing. Okay, there's graphic organizers. If you've taken classes with me, you will know I love graphic organizers. You can use them for any content area, for written expression, you know, science, social studies, math, ELA, anything. And they really help, along with drawing pictures, they really help students to get organized and really think about their thoughts and think about how they want to organize whatever it is that they are going to write. This is actually a graphic organizer for the writing process. Okay. And of course you don't have to do these 3 other examples. Don't worry about it. I think actually never mind. You don't have to do that. Okay. Your textbook talks about, Inspiration is a software that they use for this. There's also Kidspiration, which is for the younger children. I used to use that when I taught in Charleston County, and the kids love it because they can put in little pictures. It's really cute. So you might want to look into inspiration.com or Kidspiration, and you can do, there's like a free trial. I think it's free, that you could do. So just again, ways to help your students regardless of their age, right? This can be, you know, early childhood all the way up through college, whatever. So let me tell y'all about my lack of writing process. I am a terrible writer, and I don't mean I'm bad at it. I mean, I'm very slow at it. Okay. And the reason is because yes, I think pre-writing is important. Yes, I think drafting and editing and revising are important. But in my mind, when I was writing my dissertation, I wanted the sentence, the paragraph, the page to be perfect the first time I wrote it. Yeah, think about that when you're writing, you know, my dissertation was only like 112 pages, 115 pages. Think about how long it took me if I wanted and that's just me. I know that about myself, that I want, you know, when I'm writing, I want things to be perfect. So it takes me a long time to write. So hopefully you're not as bad as I am. But I guess that was my writing process, was trying to make it perfect the first time. I used to, and I don't dislike writing. I used to be in the creative writing club, you know, back at my elementary school. And I actually still have the books that our creative writing teacher, she put together for us, from when I was in 3rd grade. Thank you very much. I still have them. And I was like, oh, you know, though, I still remember the people who were in the club, but now, oh man, I'm a very writing is a very labor intensive process for me. All right, so now we're switching to talking about spelling. There are some different methods for teaching spelling. The multi-sensory method, thinking about meaning and pronunciation. Okay, look at the word, say it, use it in a sentence. Then you can trace the word, see the word, write the word. Some people use, skywriting. Some people have you kind of write the word on your arm, starting with your shoulder. The word is hat, let's say. So you hit, H at your shoulder, A at your elbow, T at your wrist. And then you start back at your shoulder, and blend it together. Hat, something like that, right? Recall, look at the word, close your eyes, see the word, spell the word orally, and then writing the word, write the word from memory, check the spelling against the original, and then cover the word and write it 3 times. That's just one example of multi-sensory method of spelling. Thinking about word processing, for those people, those students who are bad spellers. If your student has a learning disability, let's say in reading, they're probably going to struggle with spelling and probably written expression as well. Going back to that link, that we talked about way back on like slide, I think it was 2 or 3. So we want to think about, can we let students use word processing or word processors, computers, instead of handwriting? Well, think about some of the advantages, definitely helps with some fine motor problems. There's spell checkers, the thesaurus, stuff like that, that might really help our struggling readers. There are some disadvantages. You don't have to write them down, of course, just think about some of those disadvantages. Okay, invented spelling. I always yell for the longest time. I thought it was inventive, like IVE spelling, but it is invented spelling. And this goes back to, let students, especially our early writers, or even some of your older students who might struggle, who might have a learning disability in written expression, let them kind of write in their own way at first. And then when we revise and edit and you do the writing process that I do not do, that's when you can get them to really perfect their writing. But we want them to write more, right? That's kind of our goal. We want them to write more so that they can express themselves, via written expression or via communication. So we want them to use this invented spelling, especially in our early grades and our younger students. And research has shown that students who use invented spelling early on, spell as well as or better than children who were not given this instruction. So just kind of something to think about. Okay, forms of writing. I got to tell you all this too. This chapter is like the bane of my existence because I have terrible handwriting. Because here's why: I write like a left-handed person. I'm right-handed, so both my nephews are left-handed, so we kind of compare writing styles sometime. Mine is worse than theirs. I hold the pen in my right hand, but I hold it kind of like a claw or like a backward C, and my elbow's kind of at a right angle. And so when I'm writing, I drag my pinky across the page, and it smears. Hold on, y'all, my dog is barking. I gotta pause for 1 second. Okay, so as I was saying, I write like a left-handed person, and it makes it really hard to read my handwriting because it smears. And when I'm actually using like paper and pen, it smears my writing and it makes it really difficult to read. So if you are a left-handed person, you're probably sitting there thinking, yep, I have some barriers. All right, I'm going to pause again for 1 second because I'm going to switch to the e-text. So hold on. Okay, yeah, that PowerPoint just kind of ends there. It doesn't really go into any of the strategies, but I want you to take a few minutes and look in the textbook, starting for me in the hard copy textbook or the hardback textbook. It starts, oh gosh, I'm not even sure where it starts. Hold on, wasting time. I'm almost out of time. It starts on page 408 in the hard textbook. So just think about some strategies for instruction for essay writing tests. It gives you some strategies in the textbook. Okay, there's a whole little teaching tips 13.1, which is pretty handy. Then there are strategies for teaching written expression. So again, teaching tips 13.2, teaching the writing process. Okay, and then strategies for using word processing, thinking about story sequence, expanding vocabulary, sending email, appropriate and professional emails. That's still a struggle. There are strategies for teaching spelling, okay, visual memory, multisensory methods like we talked about, test, study, test, stuff like that. And then also strategies for teaching handwriting, which apparently I might need. Okay, so look through your textbook for all these strategies, and hopefully that will help you with your students with written language difficulties.